Hello and welcome to the Boost Over Ball podcast, your go-to place for everything Rocket League with your hosts, K-Cube, AJ Binky, and Red. So lean forward, lock in, and get ready to go Boost Over Ball.
Hello and welcome back to the Boost Over Ball podcast. To listeners new and old, hello and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Kyle, K-Cube, and today we will be doing something a little bit different. We have an interview with Herculyse, RLCS caster, most notably, recently at least, at Worlds 2024 in Dallas, FIFA E World Cup caster, Esports World Cup, Saudi E-League, and much, much more. This is an awesome interview, and we'd like to thank Herculyse again for taking the time to sit down with us to talk with me and to hear about her career path and some advice that she would give to other people. So without further ado, we will jump right into this interview with Herculyse. We hope you enjoy. Thank you so much. Would you like to introduce yourself for people who maybe aren't as familiar with who you are? However much information you'd like to give.
Yeah. So I'm Herculyse. I am a caster for the RLCS. I also do some interviewing for League of Legends, formerly the LCS, now the LTA. I do interviewing for like award shows. I'm all over the place, but for anyone who doesn't know me, Rocket League is my whole world. It's been that way for the last 6 years or so. And I mean, in short, I was just a college student, and then I accidentally became a TikToker. And then when I wanted to leave, a series of crazy events led me into casting and into casting the RLCS. So that's where we're at now.
That's awesome. So, and we'll talk about it a little bit more here in a second, but how did you, I guess the first question that I always like to try to ask is what brought you to esports? What was your, did you always enjoy gaming, or is it something that you kind of picked up later on?
Yeah, so as far as like gaming, that's been my entire life. Like the entire time. My dad is a huge gamer, but a big console gamer. So we were never like online or anything. I grew up playing the Super Nintendo, which is just out of everything, even through the upgrades that were coming out, I just always preferred the Super Nintendo and the GameCube. Those were my two. And yeah, I was, funny enough, because I look back on it now, I grew up loving physics. My grandfather was an architect, so like we knew like a bunch about like buildings and physics and whatever and all this stuff. And my favorite game was Mario Super Striker. And so
What
it's
a
like
good choice.
that was it. And like I only ever went against my sister until I started beating her so bad that like my dad was like, all right, you're gonna play me and like I'll actually play you so you can be competitive, because there was no like online world for Super Striker. And yeah, so that was what I did literally like through high school. If I ever just wanted to chill out, I just whip out the GameCube or the Super Nintendo and either play like speedrun Mario or Super Striker. And then yeah, it was like my senior year of high school. I had just graduated, and the person I was dating at the time had learned about Rocket League. So this would have been about like, I think 2017. And yeah, this would have been 2017. And he was always playing it, and then to the point where like he went and bought a computer and I didn't know what any of this meant. And I just remember being the girlfriend that was like, what are you doing? Like you're in your room like all the time and you never like go out or do anything. And I thought it was like super weird. And yeah, when I went on to college, we had split up, but we were still like friends because we'd known each other for a long time and our whole friend group. And he had come over one day, and let me know that the season 6 world championship was going to be in Vegas on my 21st birthday. And basically had told me like, I want to go to this thing. My mom won't let me go unless I bring some friends. And she trusts you. Like, will you go with me? And you can spend your birthday in Vegas, and I'll spend my birthday at this Rocket League event. We'll be completely separate. Um, and yeah. And so I was like, okay. I was like, but I can't afford this. So we watched RLCS, and it was Cloud9 versus NRG. And I think if I remember correctly, like the teams had already qualified. I think this was like for seeding. And of course, back then I had no idea what any of this meant. And I picked Cloud9 because I love the color blue. And he picked NRG, and I was like, if Cloud9 wins, you have to pay for my whole trip. And so
What a good
Cloud9
bet.
right. And so Cloud9 ended up winning, and he agreed to it because he still just really wanted to go. And he said that he would buy me a ticket to RLCS in case like I got bored during the day and I wanted to go to the arena and like see what it was about or whatever. And at the time I was like, oh, I have no plans to really go, but whatever. And so fast forward, November comes around and we go to Vegas. And sure enough, I got bored. And so I was like, all right, I'll go to the event with you. Like I do kind of want to see what it is. And I'm the type of person that it doesn't matter what game, what anything, like you sit me in front of a screen and you tell me that there's like a competition going on, I'm gonna pick someone and I'm just gonna start rooting like I've been watching them my entire life. So right before I had gone to Vegas for my birthday, I had bleached my hair and dyed it green, and I I don't know why, but I did. And that is a very big part in the story is that I had dyed my hair green. And yeah, basically like I rolled up to LAN. And of course Rocket League at the time was so much smaller than what it is now. And it was still really big, but like it was definitely like the community as far as like you could roll up to a LAN and like if somebody showed up for the first time, like you could actually be like, hey, that's a new person we don't know.
Right.
So when this girl comes, right? There's very few girls. This girl rolls up with bright green hair. Everybody's like, "Who are you?" Like, what the heck? And like people actually asked. And I remember I was in line for a meet and greet for Athena, and of course, I didn't know who Athena was. I just was excited. I saw a line of people. I figured this was a famous person, and so I just rolled up and I was like watching her videos like on my phone in line, like learning about her. I'm like, oh, okay, she's a streamer, she's a YouTuber, like she's like really famous. And so when I went up to her, I was like, hi, like I'm Elise, like nice to meet you. I didn't have a name or anything at the time, just my legal name. And she was like, oh my God, you're so sweet. Like, do you have an Instagram? And that was when I was like, oh, I actually have no social media. And she was like, are you serious? I was like, swear on my life. I only have Snapchat. I was like, I don't have anything else. And Facebook because
Yep.
I'm old. And she was like, well, you should make an Instagram and I'll follow you, and make a Twitter and I'll follow you. And so I was like, okay. And so I made one literally right then and there, and she followed me. And I was just like, cool. Like, I don't know what this is or what any of this means. Like, I'm probably never going to use it, but this is cool. And so that was like on the first day, and the second day goes by, and I started learning about the teams, and Flipside was in it. They were green, so I was like, cool, gonna go for them. Uh, and yeah, it was again series of events. I'm like standing in line. This guy comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, we're doing content for Rocket League Snapchat. Can we ask you a question?" And I just was really honest, and I told the guy, I was like, "I don't know anything. Like, you guys can't ask me something because I really truly don't know anything." Um, and he was just like, "Well, why don't you just like pick a random player like from the jumbotron and just say that that's your favorite player? You know, it's just for content. Like nobody has to know." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine." So they asked me the question. I look at the screen, I pick a person, and he's like, "Okay, who's your favorite player? Like, who are you excited to watch?" And I was like, "Oh, classics." And at the time, that wasn't like everyone's like favorite person in the world. It was like somebody that everybody memed on, and I had no idea. And the video gets put out, and Classics sees it and wants to meet me. And I get a DM from his manager, and his manager is like, "Hey, like we saw the video, like would you like to meet him?" And I'm like, "What?" So they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, like at the after party, like why don't you come and meet him or whatever?" And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Like why not? I'm in Vegas. Like you only live once." So I go, whatever, start making friends with everyone because everybody up in VIP is like, "Yo, who the heck is this girl?" Like I'm up there with like Violent Panda and like Remco and all their girlfriends and everybody. It's just like, who are you? And that was how I ended up becoming friends with everybody. And it just like snowballed. I ended up meeting well my now ex-boyfriend Yukio through that event. And I was waitressing at the time, and we had started seeing each other, and he would take me to these like RLCS events, and I didn't know what they were. And I just all my time was just spent watching RLCS, like from like one night to the next. That was like my this whole flip. And so yeah, I started racking up like thousands of hours into watching RLCS. It was disgusting. And I wasn't even playing the game. I was just watching it. And I was just like, okay. And then I went on a trip, and I went to Austria, and COVID happened, and I got stuck there. And the Austrian government was like, we can't let you leave, so you're gonna have to stay. So we got acquainted very quickly. And while I was there, he had one computer set up for himself, and then there was like nothing for me. Like there was no TV, no nothing. And I was like, okay, cool. I just have my phone. And so a friend of mine, Chell, the streamer, she had showed me TikTok to show me dog videos. And I literally, truly got so bored after like a week that I started making Rocket League skit videos because I had literally all day to sit there and like write scripts and like make these dummy, intricate videos and post them. And I post the first one and it goes viral. And then I was like, what the heck? And so I post it again the next day, goes viral. And I'm like, holy. And then after a month, I had like 30,000 followers, and I didn't even know what any of this meant. And I'm just like, okay. And then Dignitas reaches out, SSG reached out originally, and people don't know. Actually, I don't know if anybody knows this. I don't think I've ever said it publicly, to be honest, but I signed to SSG for one day. And then Dignitas reached out, and then I asked if I could leave so I could go to Dig, and they let me. And so I ended up on Dig for like, I think 3 years or something like that, something crazy. And they taught me how to stream and everything. And they actually were the people that gave me my first casting job when I wanted to retire from esports. It was Sapphire, who was running Radiant under Dignitas at the time, was like, "No, don't leave. Like everybody will be so sad." And I was just like, but I'm kind of like miserable in the content world. Like I don't really want to do
Fair.
this anymore. And I was like, I'd rather just go back to school. And she was like, well, why don't you just do this event for fun? And just see what happens. And so I did it, and it was literally with Jorby and Gibbs and Lemon Kiwi and Karma. And then there's like little me that's never casted for a second. They'd like full blown just threw me in. And I rolled up, and then by the end of the event, Gibbs had was saying like, "Oh, you're gonna make it to the RLCS one day," and I was like, "That's so funny." I was like, "There's like zero intention." I was like, "This is so cool and so fun," but like, you have to be so smart to be able to do something like that and so skilled. And I don't have any of that. And he was like, no, 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 it's going to happen someday. We're going to see it. And so I was like, okay, haha. And yeah, everything just kind of panned out the way it did from that day forward. And once I announced I was retiring from content and decided to give, I basically told myself a crazy bet, which I think you might understand how insane this sentence is. But as someone who had casted one real event, I turned around the next year and tweeted out, I was like, all right, I'm going to cast full time for 1 year. And if I don't make the RLCS after that, I'm just going to leave. And everybody was like, that's not going to happen. So we'll just enjoy our last year with you, I guess. And so I was like, okay, like I'm happy with it. And then, of course, it happened. So that's where we're at.
It certainly did, and that leads into my next question. We'll talk about RLCS first, and then I'll circle back and talk about some of the LCS and some of the award shows that you've done, because we can kind of do that towards the end, because that's kind of a cool experience and something a little bit different. But I know, at least from what I remember, because I, like you, have spent just an obscene amount of time watching, people younger than me drive around and hit a soccer ball with cars. So, but your first kind of RLCS event was the grid, right? Like 2020, like straight COVID times, RLCS Season X. And then, if I'm remembering correctly, kind of the first, like, I don't know, maybe post-COVID, like at least in front of a really big audience, and correct me if I'm wrong, would have been the Ford Freestyle Invitational at Worlds in Dallas the first time around in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, you keep going. I had to like pull up my Wikipedia because I was like, I don't even remember this far back.
Yeah, so because that was not the first one that I watched, but the first time that I had enough money to go to a LAN event would have been Worlds 2022. But most people, at least at that time, knew you from casting or being pretty involved with the freestyle community.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? How was it kind of casting or like basically knowing way more than the average person about the freestyle community?
Ooh, that was an experience. That honestly is the whole like beginning of the snowball effect of how I got into RLCS. I remember it was, so when I did the grid, that was like watch partying with Gibbs. And basically Gibbs would cast and I would just scream and freak out because my ex-boyfriend was on the team and I was freaking out and they just thought it was really funny. And because I was content still, like I was still a streamer.
You were the Luminosity broadcast before the Luminosity broadcast. I get it.
Yeah. I did that before that was a thing. It was the same exact energy, by the way.
Oh, that's why I said it. I remember watching those.
Oh, what?
I told you I've been watching way too many hours of people younger than me hitting a soccer ball with a car.
Aw. Yeah, so that had happened. And then yeah, I was still doing TikTok under Dignitas, and pretty much around that time was when I kind of knew I was like getting burnt out. I wanted to, I was already contemplating like retiring, and basically Ford had sent me an email and I thought it was fake. Truly 100% thought it was fake. I didn't have any agents or management at the time. So I went to a friend of mine who was a manager and I was just like, please, like, I just need advice because this crazy thing just popped up in my email and I don't know if it's real or not. And they confirmed that it was real. And basically Ford had reached out and said, hey, we are going to be presenting the real life F-150 RLE at Ford SEMA in Las Vegas. And we would love for you to come and basically unveil it with us. And we're going to take you like on all these trips and do all these things. And all we ask is you do these vlogs and put them on TikTok and put them on YouTube. And I was like, I don't even post on YouTube. And they're like, we know, but like we just really we want you. And I was like, holy. This is my first experience ever doing anything like this. Like I had been in the TikTok game for a while at this point. I was really big. For a long time I was number 1, then I was in the top 2, then I maintaining the top 5 for like years. And I remember asking them, I was like, why me? And they told me, they were like, again, this is all at the time, because if you watch my content now or you watch my streams now, it's totally different. But they were like, you're perfectly family friendly. You do not say cuss words at all. You don't do anything at all. And your energy and your vibe is exactly what we want and what we're looking for. And I was like, oh my God, like, thank you so much.
So brand safe. Look at you go.
Yeah, perfectly brand safe, like cookie cutter, brand safe, girly pop was what they wanted. And I just happened to be that at the time. And it's so funny. And of course, I didn't start cussing until after I started grinding ranked ones, but that's like a whole other thing.
Interesting. I wonder if there's
I totally wonder if it's correlated. But yeah, basically that relationship got built. And yeah, I had done the Radiant event, and that I'm staring at my Wikipedia. That would have been February, end of February. And then that was when around the time we got reached out to by Ford, and they were like, hey, there's this freestyle event. And what a lot of people don't know is I specifically got brought onto the event as like a celebrity guest, and they wanted me to not know anything. Like my role was literally to look dumb. And I was like, oh, I can do that because I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, I'm going to see somebody triple, flip reset, or, do like 5 helis and a pogo. I'm not going to know what that means. I'm going to basically be the person that's like, ooh, shiny. Like, that's so cool. And that was what they wanted. And so I go into this event, and people didn't know that, of course. And so they're just kind of like, oh, like just a dumb girl. Like she doesn't know what she's looking at. She doesn't know what she's saying, blah, 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 whatever. But at the time, I was, becoming friends with the freestylers. They're like starting to talk to me, and I'm asking questions. I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to look too dumb. Like, what is this called or whatever? So they're like sending me a clip, and they're like, this is what this called. This is what we would rate it on average, like whatever. And so I was like, okay, I was like, just don't look at the internet too much. Like, you know why you're here. Like, you're not meant to be the smartest person in the room right now. Like, just roll with it. And so the event ends, and I'm like, I'm happy with it. I'm like, I'm never going to do this again. So, like, there's no reason to stress out about it. And, yeah, and so that happens. And then I think oh shoot, I should look at Wikipedia, but I think it was like they did another one. It might have been like one of those like BMW ones or something. And or somebody did another freestyle. It might have been Ford doing another one, I think. But I did another one, and they invited me back. And they told me, they were like, if you did learn anything from it, you're more than welcome to talk about it. But basically, you don't have to like be like the, oh, I don't know anything person. They were like, we're actually bringing in someone else for that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I had like, I think like a month or 2 before this event started, and I messaged every freestyler that was involved and MK. And basically, like, me and MK would meet up online like once or twice a week for like an hour. And he would just sit there and scroll through replays of different combinations. And basically, the freestylers would send me clips. I would study to make sure I knew what the clip was. Like, I could see it blind without being told what the mechanic was. And then I would go and I would check, and I'd be like, okay, did I say this right? And I'm like, yeah, that's the right one. And so then when I would go MK, MK would get in free play and he would do a combination, and then my job was to tell him exactly what he did, and he would tell me if I got it right or wrong. So basically I was like testing myself and learning, and I told everybody, I was like, I want to be so smart coming into this next one. Like I want to be completely different than what everybody saw the first time. And so we did that for like a month or two. And I felt good enough that when we went in, I was so on par that when we would do our scores, people would think I was copying MK. And so it got to the point where I had to say it first. And so that people would believe that, like, you know, this was something I came up with and that it just really was on par with MK because I had been studying with him and everyone. And then basically, I don't, I might have said this like on a stream once, but in the off chance I didn't, when we found out that it was going to be happening at Worlds, that the finals was going to be at Worlds, we had been told that only, I believe, 4 or 5 people were going to get to go judge it, but that they weren't going to take me. And I remember being really like confused because I was like, well, like, did I do something wrong? Like, did I not know what I was saying or whatever? And they were like, no, it's just budgeting. Like, you're not on the RLCS roll, like payroll. It just is easier for us to, like, you know, bring in another caster than to bring you in. And I was like, oh. I was like, but isn't that gonna like mess with, like, you know, the flow of like the point system and like the consistency of it? And I started thinking like really deep into it. And of course, because like you're sad, you worked on the entire event and you get excited. And so I didn't say anything past that. And then I went to a couple players and I asked the players, I was like, look, I'm not gonna fight this if you guys don't think it's a big deal. But this is the situation, like, what are your thoughts on it? And the players were the ones that were like, no, like, you deserve to be there. You've worked so hard to learn about us and what we do and to truly understand what these mechanics are and, you know, the level of what everything is. They were like, you 100% should be there. And they wrote up a little letter and they gave it to Gibbs, and then Gibbs gave it to I think at the time it was Epic, but Rocket League, Psyonix. And everybody kind of banded together and was like, Herc should be in it, Herc should be in it. And they still said, no, we're sorry. Like, this is just, you know, the decision we've come to. Like, she's not going to be in it. And I told them, I was like, I'm literally going to be at World. Like, I'm going as a content creator already. Like, I live in Texas. I was like, I don't need anything. I was like, I will literally do it for free. I just want to be a part of it, you know? And they were like, okay, first off, we're not letting you do this for free, but also like the decision's already been made. We're sorry. So I was like, okay, whatever. So all the time goes by. I kind of put it out of my head. And I go to Worlds and we're at Wild Card and we're watching the teams play and everything, whatever. And I had gone backstage to pick up content creator pass. And when I was back there, there were some people, you know, from Psyonix there, and they came up to me and were like, Herc, we have a surprise for you. And I was like, what? And they were like, you have 1 day to go find an outfit and we're going to bring you on the desk to do the freestyle event. And I was like screaming. Like, I started like tearing up and I was like jumping, and my friends were with me and they started jumping because this is one of the few times you ever see a content creator go on the desk for anything, right? Like, back then, like, that just wasn't a thing. Like, unless it was like Rizzo or Athena, you didn't see anybody up there really. And so we're all like screaming and like freaking out. And I remember I was a widow and she drove me to an Urban Outfitters and we started trying on like a bunch of dresses and we found one and we go into the event and it's insane. Like, I remember sitting on there and there was actually like a commercial I had filmed with Ford back in the original, like,
The off-road.
The off-road with Cry.
Yeah.
Yes. So we did that. And I remember they're like in my ear. Mind you, I hadn't worn like the fancy headsets or anything yet. So I had it on and I didn't realize that they could talk to you. And so they told me, they were like, this voice comes in my headset and it's like, Herc, turn around. And so I turn around and the ads started playing and I started crying because like it's my face on a jumbotron at RLCS, and I'm like, what on earth is going on? And so I'm like, this is so cool, like, oh my god, and like I'm freaking out, and like my friends are all around me, and whatever, they're like looking up at me because they were all in the VIP, and we're all like looking at each other, and I'm screaming, they're screaming, and I mind you, in reality, like for as long as this all went, I really was only on the desk for about like 20 minutes, maybe 30. And it was a really like unfortunately it was just like a not a good final. I think the players were nervous. They had never been on something that big. We had never been on something that big. Like
Was
it
that the
wasn't the
was that the one too where they wanted everybody to use the Ford RLE and
yes.
they didn't
They
give them a
wanted
ton
them to
of
use
time to
the
practice?
yes, and
Yeah.
everybody just kept missing, and I think it was like there was only like 2 or 3 real shots that got scored when it could have been like 30 or something, and it was like kind of a mess, and but um I remember I came off of it, I go upstairs, and before this, of course, like I said, I'd been a content creator and I'd been like known as someone's girlfriend for so many years. Like I really didn't have my own identity. Everybody called me so and so's girlfriend. And I got referred to that all the time. I was okay with it even though I had already created the name Hercules. Like I just kind of knew that that was, how people saw me. And this was the first thing I had done where I was not attached to a guy, or, my relationship wasn't, my personality. And when I came off of it, I literally had walked out to try to go to the bathroom and I walked out into the arena area to go to the bathroom, and I got so warmed. And all of a sudden, I kept hearing my name, and everybody was like, Hercules, Hercules, like, can I get a picture with you? Like, can you sign this for me? Oh my gosh, like, you're incredible, like, you're so amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even do anything. Like, why are y'all freaking out? And then I'm like saying hi to all these people, and like this has never happened to me before to this level. And I remember this girl came up to me, and she came up to me and she was like crying. And I was like, "Oh my god, like it's okay, like don't cry. Like I swear I'm nothing special. Like don't freak out like this. Like it's okay." And she was like, "No, no, no. It's not that." She says, she goes, and she wasn't from the US. She was visiting from England. And she had told me, she was like, "I've been watching the RLCS for many years, like basically since like the first few seasons." And she was like, "We've never had a girl up there like this before." She was like, because obviously, like anybody who watches remembers, like Gillywood was on there for a tiny amount of time, and Seltzer had done like an event or two every once in a while, but they weren't like, like die hard, like, oh, I'm in the Rocket League community kind of people. And
Like
she was
no one
saying,
really besides Karma, like
yeah,
not like casting, but like just even in
just
the
in
scene
it,
at all.
had ended up in that position. And like, and even then, when like Jamie or when Karma would go up there, um, like she was like, I don't want to do this. She was just like, I want to play. Like that was her thing. And I was good friends with her and her boyfriend, and that was what she would say all the time. She's like, I love doing this, but like I'd rather be playing. And I was just like, no, I know, like I don't know what to do. And so that girl was talking to me at Worlds, and she said, like, I haven't seen a woman up there. And I guess she thought I had been a caster for like a super long time, and I got like my break or something. And I had to like break it to her that like this was literally like one of my first like 10 events ever, and like even then like wasn't really like casting. Um and she this is the part that had stuck with me, was that she had asked me, she was like, "Well, are you coming back on later?" And I looked at her and I was like, "No." I was like, "That's it." Like it just the 20 minutes. Like it was just like a little thing. And she was like, "Wait, you're not coming back?" And I was like, "No, this isn't what I do. This was just like a one-time thing." And she got so sad and she was like, "Dang, like I would have loved to have seen you again. I'm so sad." And then another girl comes up to me and says the same thing. She's like, "When are you coming back on?" And I'm like, "I'm not." Like, "I'm so sorry." Like, and when those girls had said that, um, I had this weird moment where like I had already known that that LAN was probably going to be my last LAN as a Dignitas content creator, because again I'd already told Dig I was thinking about retiring. And Dig, went ahead and picked up another content creator just to like kind of have a flow going. So they picked up Nikki Justine. And when they did that, I was like, I feel like this is kind of a sign for me to like move on a little bit. Um, and I remember after that event happened and meeting those girls, I literally walked upstairs and I texted Dignitas and I was like, "All right, I'm retiring. Like I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna do this casting thing to see what happens." And they were like, "What? Like we're so sad." And I was like, "Don't say anything. Like I'll do like the last meet and greet on Sunday, but like after that we'll announce it." And so they were like, "Okay, like let's do that or whatever." And I was like, "Okay, I'm happy with that." Cause like Dignitas had been like my whole life for like 3 years. And it was like a big deal for me that I was leaving. And yeah, so then that happened, and that was the start of the little snowball that kicked off all of last year in 2023.
It's interesting to hear the other side because I've been following the scene for a while. I was one of the people that took a picture with you after the freestyle cast. And
What?
yeah, I'll share the picture with you after, but we'll continue on. But I kind of feel like you're reading off of the question sheet that I have, but you talk about the girls coming up to you. That's such an important part of, in my opinion, of the scene now, right? With you, with Lemon Kiwi, with more inclusion, with
Mhm.
Karma continuing to do the things that Karma does. Um, the inherently esports in general is not it like is genderless. It should be genderless, right? Like there's nothing inherently like physical about esports that should make one gender better than the other at it. And so seeing the representation is awesome. So I would like to ask what advice you would have, like you would give to yourself, like your past self, or people who are trying to get into casting, and any advice that you'd like to give to women in esports in general, whether it's playing, casting, or just being involved.
Ooh. I know what I'm gonna say, and I guess like leading into it is there's actually like a bookmark tweet that I have of a tweet that I had put out, um, where I had said I didn't even know why I put it. I was very ballsy for putting this out on the main, by the way, and I had I had tweeted. I was like, I think I straight up just put like, "Oh, they'll never respect me. I'm just a woman to them." And the comments were just like, "No, no, 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 like they're mad and they're mean because it's new. It's change, right? Like it freaks them out. Like people like what they like. They like routine and they don't like sorry. Oh no, my cat. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Um they were like a lot of the comments were just like people don't like change. And I was like, that's fair. Like when I think about it and I have to do something that's different, or out of my norm when it's, there's nothing wrong with it. I get frustrated. And I I think to, any girls, well, I guess first to myself, like advice I could tell myself from the get-go would have been everybody is going to be so mean because it's different. You're new. You are change that is very unexpected. And it in reality wasn't asked for. A lot of people, the truth is, a very small minority of women were asking to see a woman, but they were so outnumbered that you didn't even know it was something that was being asked for. And that just goes to everyone, like to the Chixas and the CRL, and to Lemon Kiwi was in CRL and RLCS before me, and Veracity had done the wild card interviews, and you know Seltzer and Gillyweed had already been on it in years past. Like every time people were mean, it was because it was something different, something had changed. And you don't have to take it personally. Like I'm still working on it. Like I, I that's like a whole thing, but like I still have to tell myself like it's just cuz it's new. And the RLCS casters they explained it to me best. They were like, I know it doesn't feel like it now, but there was a time where everybody hated Jorby. Like nobody could stand his voice or how excited he would get. Why? Because he was new. And then they started to love him over time and to appreciate him. And then when he was taken away, well, all of a sudden everybody was like, well, what the heck? Where is he? And they were like, the same thing happened to Isaac, and the same thing happened to Daz. Everybody has been through it where, you are just so immensely hated, and the casters were like, it's gonna happen to you, but 50 times worse just because you're a girl. And again, everything just boils down to change. And the only way for it to become normal and for the girls to kind of, it be normal to see them, and it's not this big crazy deal, and we can just give the performance we give, is to see us. And the only way you can learn as a woman is to get to be there. And I tell people all the time, they're like, why did you accept the job when you didn't even have like a year's experience? And I was like, well, I could either jump into the deep end and learn how to swim, or I could be told how to swim for another 3 years and still get thrown in the deep end and learn how to swim. And so I was like, I'll just do it. I'm like, what do I have to lose? I can just be really bad and then disappear off the internet. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, but to anyone like who's listening, this goes for guys too. Like, any caster or host or interviewer or analyst that wants to be in it, people are just going to be mean because you're not one of the original 10. And that's just the reality of it.
That's extremely well put. And also, people are always going to be mad no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, because you get to do stuff that they never could.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like how many Rocket League fans would love to be a caster but will never get the opportunity just because they, don't have the dedication, drive, or they just don't want to do it. Like they just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't let it, not necessarily for you. It seems like you have a fantastic attitude about it and a great way of looking at it, but like don't ever feel ashamed to take an opportunity that someone else has given you.
I appreciate that, because there was a time where I definitely was gonna turn it down because I felt really guilty for getting something quicker than most. So
Hey, and everybody gets their opportunities in different ways and in different timelines. So just because yours happened quicker than others doesn't mean that you deserve it any less.
appreciate that.
But next, I'm gonna gloss over some stuff from this past year. I know it's extremely exciting, but I don't want to steal content from a question that I have right after this. So
Okay.
first of all, congratulations for being a part of the RLCS 2024 broadcast, casting at all of the open qualifiers, casting at the Copenhagen Major, the London Major, and the RLCS World Championships. You got to cast, I believe, a quarterfinal match at Worlds. Massive congratulations on that. You did the Esports World Cup in I believe is in Riyadh. You did the FIFA E World Cup, the Saudi E League, a lot of smaller CCA, CRL, club dubs, all kinds of different stuff. So we'll circle back and talk about RLCS in a minute, but you have gotten an opportunity to do some traveling, to go to various different parts of the world, all for casting, for LCS, doing award shows, and for Rocket League. Do you have a favorite place that you visited, or maybe the coolest thing that you've seen while traveling for casting?
It makes me laugh because I've been to so many cool places, and I'm pretty sure.
You just go to the event center?
Wait, what?
You just spend the entire time in the event center?
Usually you get like 1 day or two to go exploring, but funny enough, out of everywhere I've ever been because of Rocket League and esports, my favorite place is always just gonna be Vegas.
Okay. I was gonna say, don't say Dallas. Please don't say Dallas.
No, God, no. But no, it's definitely Vegas because doing Vegas on a trip where you don't have to spend any money and you get to do all this cool stuff and stay in these really high-end hotels in these big, crazy, fancy suites. It really is like being in a movie.
That's awesome.
And that whole experience was like truly the I think it's probably because I'm American, so I'm like that's peak. Like doing the top of the top of what you can do in Vegas is like, especially in your early 20s.
I'll get to live
too.
that bougie life. I gotcha.
Yeah, you get to do it like, when you're like 22, 23, so you're like, "Oh my god." But in like a more like outside the world kind of thing, it isn't even it's not even a place that I worked. It's more because with casting I could do it remotely, right?
Right.
So I had at the time I was in an international long distance relationship and I was living bicontinentally. That was the word. Bicontinentally. And I would spend 3 months in Austria and 3 months in Washington. And I would go back and forth. And I think my favorite place outside of the little Vegas thing is the fact that because I was casting and I was casting remotely, I would take my laptop with me everywhere I went and my little C920 and my tiny microphone. And I got to live in Austria for 6 years because of it.
That's
And
awesome. That's so cool.
it just was the most surreal experience ever to have the freedom to, you're only really working for 3 days, right?
Yeah.
And of course you're studying and you're watching for a couple hours a day for the rest of the week. But because of the time zone, I spent all day just exploring Austria. Like I would take a train to another city and just go explore all day and then come back home at night and then I would just cast all night. And that to me is cooler than visiting anywhere, was getting to do that for years. And it wasn't just Austria. Like I would be like, okay, I'm gonna go to Greece for the weekend and just leave for 3 days and do my studying there and then come back and cast. And like I got to live like that for probably closer to 5 years, but again, that's still a really long time that I got, instead of the college experience, like I got to do that. So yeah.
That sounds incredible. So, like building off of that for the traveling, I'll ask, because you've been to events as a fan and you've been to events as talent. Do you have a favorite moment that you've been a part of with casting, and a favorite moment that you've witnessed in person, like apart from casting, or maybe it was at an event that you were working, but you weren't casting that specific match?
I off the top of my head, I know exactly what my favorite like fan moment is actually. Um again, this was back when I was dating Yukio, who was a Rocket League pro player for Dignitas at the time. And I was in Madrid and I was there for the infamous Vitality Dignitas OT that went on for what felt like 10 years. And being the girlfriend of the player who scored the OT goal to give them another chance to keep going, when it happened, I literally felt like, for starters, when the whole series was going on, it felt blacked out. Like, I truly can't tell you what had gone on. But when the goal got scored, I actually didn't even know he had scored it. I was just so relieved that I fell on the ground because I was jumping. I was like screaming my head off. And we're sitting on Vitality's side, by the way. So, like, we couldn't even see them. We're freaking like staring at Vitality and it's like pissing everyone off. And I'm screaming. And as soon as that goal got scored, well, for starters, there was a moment where the OT had gone on for so long. The entire arena had stood up and just started clapping. And it was just because we were like, this is just such good Rocket League. Like, everybody was just so happy that the whole arena, it didn't matter who you were cheering for, stood up and just started screaming and clapping. And when that happened, I started tearing up because you're already like really emotional at this point and you're stressed. And then that was the buildup to the OT goal. And so when it happened, I fell on the ground and I just started sobbing. And then I look up at the screen, and across the screen it says Yukio. And I lost it. And one of the RLCS photographers saw me and turned around and he started taking a ton of pictures. And they got a photo of me on the ground with an Austrian flag, crying, like looking up at the screen, like screaming yes. And that is like, we've gone our separate ways, like no bad blood, like he does his own thing now, but to this day that will forever be my favorite photo of any RLCS experience I could ever do. Because it was just like that was like me back when it was just like purely just a fan. And I think a lot of people don't know that about me. Is like I truly was a fan before I started doing this. And that photo is my favorite just moment of all time. And I think as far as casting goes, there's a photo from when I debuted on LAN. Me and Cole had gone out. We had BDS G2, and this was back in Copenhagen. And I was shaking like terribly. Like I'm pretty sure I was having like a whole anxiety attack, and I was just doing everything in my power to like lock in and not cry because I was so scared that like it felt like my throat was closing up because I'd never been in front of so many people like and had my eyes and everybody's listening to me, and like you have the pressure of knowing that for the next 30 minutes our entire world, our little world of Rocket League, right? They're only listening to our two voices. And when you think about it like that, it is so terrifying. And I did it, and my boyfriend who I was seeing was sitting in like eye line of me, and I had looked to my right. I had Cole on my left, and he was sitting in the first row on my right. And I looked at Cole and I looked at him, and as soon as it ended, because I don't even remember what the last call was, but as soon as it ended, there was this crowd of people that had started chanting Hercules. And I don't know. I just got like this big burst of energy and I just literally let out a scream. And I just, because it was so loud with the crowd that you weren't going to hear me, right? And we were muted. And so I literally just was like, ah, like I just like let it all out. And the photographer got the moment that I did that. And I look crazy. I look like a freaking Dragon Ball character trying to like summon something. And he gets this photo of me looking off to the side just screaming to let it all out. And then I just started crying and I was like, holy shit. Like, and because right before the series started, Liquipedia had confirmed it to me that I was going to be the first woman in front of a crowd ever. And what I kind of wish I didn't know that until after, but when they
No
told
pressure,
me
no
that,
pressure, right?
yeah, no pressure, right? I decided to make a tweet about it right before I went out because I mean, it meant a lot to me. Like, you know, of course, like as a fan, like I knew what that had meant to, you know, some girls out there. And so I was like, this deserves to be celebrated. And I truly think it's a really big honor. I know that Gibbs, when he put me on that, I just was like, I will take such good care of this moment and make it so worth it for so many girls. And yeah, that whole series and just that moment and the tweets and seeing so many guys be happy for me was so cool. And yeah, so those are very long stories, but those are the two big moments as a fan and as a caster.
Fair. I mean, those are fantastic stories, and seemingly, at least in terms of stakes, you know, you casted the lower bracket quarterfinals with G2 Furia,
Mhm.
and I know a lot of people, a lot of people were really fired up about that match. There's some really good pictures that we got, that a lot of people got of, you know, that series. So what was, if you had to summarize or like sum up your entire RLCS experience for 2024, how would you do that?
Ooh. Well, for starters, I don't think hardly anyone knows this, but all of 2024 was an accident. None of this was supposed to happen. Um,
Yeah,
this is
I did know that you were brought on to the talent desk pretty late into the whole process.
mm-hmm. I Yeah, it started off as like Lemon Kiwi couldn't do the first weekend when RLCS had returned after so long of being away. And basically I got told that they were like, we're bringing in 14 casters. Herc was number 15. She didn't make the cut. We'll see if we offer her a spot next year or the year after. And then they told me, hey, there's, you know, a position available for you to sub for 3 days. You're not going to ever come back for the rest of the year. Mind you, this, I'm being told this in like the first week of January or something like that, or like the end of December.
Yeah, when everyone
And
else found out and they were like, "Oh, it's actually in 2 weeks."
yes, and I'm getting told like, hey, you know, you're not going to get brought back ever again. You have the opportunity to do it for 3 days, or you can wait and see if you make it next year or the year after. And I remember I was like, can I have a week to think about it? And they said yes. And the only reason I just didn't say yes off the rip was because I had told myself, I was like, if I'm going to debut, right, in front of the whole world, I want to be back. Like, I want to keep coming and keep doing it and everything. And I came to a point where I had made peace with the fact that there was a world where I actually would probably never make the cut for RLCS. Just because I have so little experience in comparison to everybody else. And I'm talking like everybody at the minimum. has 5 to 8 years on me. And I had kind of accepted, I was like, there is a world where those 3 days are the only time I will ever see the RLCS. And I was like, you know what? People are going to be really mad at me for accepting this and not letting, Jorby or someone else, take it for those 3 days. But I got asked first. There's has to be a reason I'm going to do it. And of course, like all the weird, crazy, funny little things played out that I kept getting brought back, and things kept happening that I kept having to get brought back. But the whole year as a whole is honestly just the happiest accident on earth. Like, truly. It is just so unbelievable when, like, I really sit and think about it, how any of this happened.
Hey, I mean, just because it's an accident, or just because you were called on late, doesn't mean that you weren't deserving of the opportunity. So you certainly made the most of it. You forced their hand. They continued to bring you back throughout the year. You were so prolific in your casting that you were able to also cast for the debut of Rocket League at the FIFA E World Cup. You were at the Esports World Cup as well. What were those events like? Being abroad, being in front of a pretty rabid fan base, but not like very solely focused fan base, right? They're like Team Falcons or nothing for them.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like?
It was really interesting, honestly. Because there's kind of like two experiences that you have. You have like, I'm there as a caster, like it's really cool. Like I think FIFA E is like the better example because, EWC, we were casting away from everyone. So we never saw anybody. And we were pretty secluded in that one. But FIFA E, we were in front of the crowd, like old school style. And mind you, I hadn't done that in like 2 months at that point. So, and even then, World, we were also secluded. We weren't even facing the crowd or on the same level as them. So I hadn't even been in that position since about London. And yeah, I think with FIFA E, at least, the whole country aspect of it was really like you got like, oh, like your pride, whatever. But when I talk about like the two experiences as a caster, it was so incredibly fun. Like the setup of it, I mean, those people out there are some of the most creative people I have ever worked with. Like truly. Like I love, trying to find spins on Rocket League. I used to host tournaments myself, and I didn't really stray outside like the normal, round robins or the Swiss brackets or anything like that. But one of the things I loved the most was freestyling because it was so different. And when they had come up with this, I was like, oh my God, this is like amazing. This is going to be so much fun. And then, of course, like you have your normal fears where it's like, oh, people are going to like you because you're a girl, blah, 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 whatever. But I actually ended up working the esport awards out in Riyadh as well during the esport World Cup. So one of the days I had left halfway through the day to go and host the red carpet for the esport awards in Riyadh, and the prince was going to be in attendance. And of course, if anybody knows anything about His Royal Highness, he is obsessed with Rocket League, and he we were on the red carpet, and I got approved to do his interview, and he had come up to me, and they were like very specific about it. They were like, you can't touch him, you got to be within so many inches of him, like you cannot breathe this man's air. And I was like, okay. Like, then they were like, we're gonna have somebody in your ear, like security will let you know if you're getting too close, like blah 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 blah, whatever. Like whatever you do, don't touch him. And like right before we go live, he sees me and he goes, Hercules. And I'm like, huh? And I was like, hello, it's so nice to meet you. And he was like, oh, you've been doing, the EWC all week. Like, how's that been? And I'm like, oh my God, it's so much fun. Like, I'm having a great time. And he's like, I'm so proud of you. I saw that, you finally got brought in, to RLCS. Like, they started bringing you. And I'm like, how do you know this? Like, you you actually watch it? And he's like, yes, like I am so proud of you. Like I'm so happy like to see all your success after, we had brought you in for Gamers 8 the year prior. And back then I was just an interviewer. And in that one and leading into Saudi E League because they had been there as well. Or not Saudi E League, FIFA. Um the experience, because it is very rare you are working an event that is also where you are so deeply immersed in another country's culture that is so like 180 to your own, right?
Right.
Like that alone is like such an undescribable experience. And like and I don't mean to like talk about it too much, but I feel like it shouldn't be stigmatized for me to talk about it, so I will. But like I'm not gonna lie, like being in Saudi Arabia as a woman, like the first time was terrifying because like you only know what you hear about, right? And then it's another thing to go and like be in it. And it was so cool, like getting to see that there has been this push made to, you know, give women some power in some places out there. Um and to be a part of that, even though it is in the tiniest, most microscopic way possible. Like to be a part of that and think about it, when like 10 years down the road, it is going to be normal for girls. Like to know you're a part of those first steps because of events like that is like my mom lore will go nuts when I'm older.
Yeah. What a surreal experience. I'm sure it must have been like, wait a minute. How do you know me? What?
Oh my gosh. I I don't even a lot of the times like when you work with events, you never meet the people that like hire you. And like we've known like from the beginning, like anytime people are chosen for these events, I don't know if people know it, but like you are handpicked like by the prince. Like he decides. And he decides because he watches the RLCS and he picks his people that he wants to hear and see to work on the event. Um and when you think about it in like that perspective, and then you think about how like moments where it's like, oh, you like legit know who I am, you're like, this is unfathomable. Because I've worked events before and then gone and like met the head honcho, and I'll be like, hi, I'm Hercules, and they're just like, oh, it's nice to meet you, and I'm like, oh, we've actually like been in an email thread for the last like 3 months, like hi. um but yeah, in that particular one, like I didn't even know how to explain that. That was just weird. That was crazy.
So that actually flows really well into one of the another question that I have, and I've been fortunate enough, we've gotten to talk to Stacks, Karma, Corelli, some other people, and the one of the like common themes I feel like for at least people that we've talked to, and in different levels it happens to everybody, right? But like the imposter syndrome. So is that something that you deal with? How do you feel about that whole situation?
I'm probably like the CEO of it, at least as far as 2024 went. There's no way it wasn't me that year. Yeah, that was again because everything was an accident. And when I say accident, Like, like, the sub spot, for example, right? And, like, being told you're not gonna get brought in, and you spend a whole week, like, making peace with it that you're never gonna get brought back, and then the community goes in, like, such an uproar that they're like, "We're gonna bring you in, and we're gonna let you do this, special, woman on land moment," and you're like, "Huh?" Like, you mean for the rest of time that my name is gonna go alongside that moment in history, you know? That was imposter syndrome on a level that put me in therapy because, like, I literally could not comprehend that this was happening, and it was scary because it's like you're I mean, obviously online, people are gonna voice the bad more than they're gonna voice the good, and again, like, that
They
goes.
just have a louder voice. Like that's really what it
Yes.
comes down to.
They're gonna be so much louder, and it doesn't help that, again, I didn't expect to be brought back, right? So I had not done, the mental preparation for being in the spotlight and what was going to come along with all of that. And so, again, when I say accident, the moment that comes to mind that I'm like, you guys don't understand imposter syndrome until you understand this moment. I was in Copenhagen on the last day. It's Champ Sunday, it's nighttime, and I get an email for a flight to London. And I'm like, huh. I was like, I'm not going to London. They told me they couldn't take me to London. Like, they said I could do the online calls, but they said I wasn't gonna be able to go to London. They had too many people. So I in person decided to go up to the guy in charge, and I'm like, hey man, someone accidentally booked me a flight for London. uh can I just take it and just go to the event? Like, and he was like, oh, like, that was definitely a mistake, like, somebody accidentally booked you a flight for London. We'll get back to you on that, but we're just gonna try and refund it, like, you can't go. And I was like, oh, okay, like, just worth a shot, whatever. um and then, like, a week later, we get an email, and they go, so the flight's non-refundable, and it's cheaper for us to just pay you to work London than it would be for you to just go. And I was like, "Wait, so now I'm casting London?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna let you cast London." And I was like, "Huh?" And so, like, those were the situations I was dealing with, and trying to sit there and, like, you're trying to tell yourself, like, it's really hard to tell yourself you earned it when that's the situation you keep getting placed in. And it's not that you're not good enough, right? But it's not unfolding, the normal way that it should. So your imposter syndrome is like, you have hundreds and hundreds of people telling you, like, oh, you deserve this. Like, we're so proud of you. We're so happy for you. Like, there's nobody more deserving. And you're sitting there like, I'm here because somebody accidentally booked a non-refundable flight and they said that it was just cheaper to send me. And I'm like, pure imposter syndrome. My version of it was so skewed and weird this past year. I think next year will be the first time I experience it like a normal person. But yeah, that 2024 version of it was just like, did it was a big reason why people didn't see me online posting. You would never ever hear me say that I felt like I deserved to be there. And I never ever was telling people like, I busted my butt for 6 years to be here and I deserve to be here more than anybody else. I very humbly knew how I was getting into these events. And I was just like, I have one job, and that is to be good enough and improve enough in these short, weird amounts of time that I am here to hopefully, bump myself up from that 15th spot to 14. I want to make the top 14, and I want to have a real offer, and I want to have a real contract that's for the whole year, not just, 10 different mini ones. Like I don't know. It was a weird mental battle, and I meant it. It wasn't even a joke. That whole year, I threw myself in therapy the second I learned about Reddit. I had to
Uh-oh.
sign up for therapy.
But yeah, that's so. First off, thanks for sharing. It's never an easy thing to talk about any kind of mental health stuff, especially as high profile as that might be. But you wouldn't have been in an opportunity to be an accident if if you didn't put yourself there with merit and ability and talent. So you know, don't sell yourself short on that one.
Thanks.
Of course, but I got a couple more questions. So I told people, I told everyone we'd circle around to it at the end.
Mhm.
You talked a little bit about doing some award shows. Let's talk about formally LCS. How did you get into doing stuff for LCS or for League, and how have you enjoyed it?
Oh my gosh. So that's like my secret little world. I know for a fact that before it was public, nobody knew I loved League. That was my secret little me thing. And that was something I shared with my friend group from middle school. It's me and my 5 friends, and I'm sure they're gonna listen to this because they love supporting every single little thing that I do. So shout out to Chase and Sinuwe and Robbie and Dylan. Um, they play League. They've been playing it since we were in middle school, and I used to game with them a lot. But again, I wasn't playing anything online at the time, so I would just watch or hear about it. And then once I started learning about RLCS, they started teaching me about LCS a little bit. Again, not a whole bunch, but I did enjoy watching it like when we would watch it. And then became friends with a streamer named Diego Soros, and he was an American streamer, and I was living in Austria, and he would he would wake up and stream at like my nighttime. So he's like waking up at like 9 p.m. in the US. And I had just joined Evil Geniuses, and EG was going to secretly take me to watch EG play 100 Thieves. And I wanted to be really, really smart about it. And so I asked him, I was like, yo, can you teach me like all the details of like the LCS and all this stuff, whatever. And so we stayed up in Discord a couple nights studying. He was like teaching me everything, whatever. And so I go to LCS, crazy experience, by the way. Like if you ever have the privilege to, and this goes to anybody, have the privilege to experience a riot party, huh, that's like the esports Great Gatsby. Like they're insane. And I had never experienced anything like that in my life. And it was so funny because there were League people that knew me from Rocket League, and I didn't know who they were. And this was just back as a content creator. And one time, I'm maybe at the max 2, I played League of Legends on stream. And I don't know why I did it. I think like my chat had finally convinced me, and I was like, fine, I'll do it. I'm not good. I only got into League of Legends because I found out that there was a champion named Elise. And I was like, well, I want to play a champion with my name. Like, that would be fun. And so that was like the whole thing that like started to get me to actually play it. And then basically we got an email at sometime last year, and the LCS had reached out and they were like, hey, we would love for you to interview. Mind you, I'd never interviewed before. And fun fact, in 2023, I had an offer to interview for the RLCS, and I turned it down because I told Psyonix, I said, no, the first time you will ever see me out there, I will be casting. And that
Hey,
was
props to you for that.
I told I was like, look, it's too like you get too boxed in, and especially as a woman, like I know I would not be happy. So I stood by it and they respected it. So that was supposed to be my first interview job, but I turned it down. And then LCS reached out and I had no idea one how the LCS knew who I was and how they knew that I like even knew anything about the game. And basically like I just told my agents, I was like, please send me, like I'll do it, like I don't care. And I was like, I think I was supposed to do some event, like I was supposed to do some Rocket League event like the 3 days leading up to it or something. And I literally told them like put me on a red eye and I flew to LA for 24 hours to go do it. And then I left the next day to come back and finish Rocket League. And I went, I did it, and while I was there, I at the end of it, like after the last match, I asked the producer, I was like, "Hey, like I know it's not normal to like ask this, but like how did y'all like find me? Like, like why me? Like what the heck?" And she said that a year prior, so back when I was in Austria, she had happened to tune in the day that I had streamed League of Legends.
That's crazy.
Yeah. She said she just happened to be there on a day that I streamed League of Legends, so that was how she knew that I liked it. And she had followed me on Twitter, and I didn't know because sometimes, you know, the most important accounts are actually the really tiny ones that have no description and you have no idea who they are. And the producer for the LCS follows me, and I had no idea she had followed me for a whole year. Well, what had happened the next year? The next year was 2023. That was when Ford and everything was going down. And she said that she'd watched me all year doing all these things. So they put in a spot for me in 2023, and it took them a whole year to find an opening for me to go and guest interview for the LCS. So she was like, we just didn't tell you because we didn't want you to have to wait for a whole year. We just waited until it happened and then we told you. And I was like, this was going on without me knowing for that long in the background of things. So that was that whole thing. And it's my favorite. Like, I love Rocket League to death, right? But everybody, even the Rocket League casters, everybody has to admit, League of Legends is like that is like the peak of like how big a production can get.
It's the tier 1 of tier 1.
Exactly. So to work with it in any capacity, right, is the most surreal thing on earth. Like to be like, you know my name? Like what? So yeah, that was a whole thing about that. And I think I had gone back. I did one other time this year. I did it once this year. And same thing. They were just like, they told me it took a whole year. And they were like, we just waited to tell you. And I went back.
That's awesome. So you enjoyed it?
Oh, I love it. They know I want to work it more than anything in the world. I did tell myself like 2025, I kind of want to, not that like I don't have like a future or a career in the RLCS. Like by the time this gets posted, I assume it will be announced that I got my first full-time mainstay contract with the RLCS.
Hell yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Wait.
Like I was saying, like 2025, I told myself I'd try to branch out a little more, and League of Legends, now the LTA, is the only game I've been like, hello. So
Fair. Okay. Well, we've talked about RLCS, we've talked about casting, we've talked about formerly LCS. So for people who only really know you from RLCS, from your casting or your Ford Freestyle commercialing, what outside of casting, or what other interests or hobbies do you have that help you either unwind or that you do like when you're not streaming or no one's watching?
for a long time It was ballet. That was like my whole life before all of this. And I just got my first car like literally a few days ago.
I saw that.
And
Congratulations on the Tesla.
thank you. It was the only car I could see over the dash. So anybody flaming me for getting a Tesla, that was the sole reason I picked it. Okay. So yeah, I did that. But one of the first things I've done was get myself back into ballet because now I can drive the classes again. And so outside that though is like I love Pilates. That's something I've done that like I don't know. It's so just relaxing to me. And it's like challenging but in a good way. And then anything other than that is honestly I'm a really big like movie TV show freak and I will sit and literally just watch movies for like hours and hours and hours on end or I'll like binge a show and just like get lost in it. Or I'll go to the movie theater or I'll go like watch like a play or something because I was a big theater kid growing up. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm low key really boring. So
That's a lie and a half. Holy shit. Traveling the world, doing casting, multiple esports, owning a Tesla, that not boring. But I got two more questions for you. One of them's really less of a question, more of a statement. But I want to roll out the red carpet. Where can people support you? Where can people find your content, your stuff, and what anything exciting that you have coming up that you're able to share
oh,
or want to share?
okay. Well, I'm Herculyse, like the name, how it's spelled. I'm Hercules on every single platform. So if you're ever looking for me, just look for the name Hercules. I went and stole it everywhere as soon as I made it. I signed to Cloud9 this last year, so now that I kind of have my bearings with RLCS, the plan is to Twitch stream and get back into it now that it's an option to have as a hobby again and it's not going to feel so much like work. And that's a really good place to be able to like talk and interact with me if you've ever wanted to like get to know me or anything like that. Like that's the place. Also, I'm super obsessed with Twitter. I tweet literally every single day. If you guys ever want to follow me on there, Instagram, same thing. My stories, if you want to know about my daily life, I post on there for fun. TikTok is kind of a spam now. So if you're on there, it's low-key like a secret club for anyone who still exists out there. But yeah, 2025 is more so about, you know, streaming, just connecting with everybody, just continuing to build, you know, the Hercules brand. I can't leak too much, but if you know what NES is, know that Cloud9 is trying to sell it. So there's a world where that comes back, but I can't tell you the timeline on when and where and how much, but it is in the works.
Okay. So a lot of excitement for you to come, especially in the next couple of weeks with RLCS coming up. So with that, the last question that I like to leave everybody with, and feel free to give a real answer, feel free to give a joke answer, whatever you like. As this is the Boost Over Ball podcast, when is the best time to go boost over ball?
Always.
Hell yeah.
If you don't break out of that habit, you're lame.
That's such a good answer. But with that, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for talking with me. This has been one of my favorite interviews. You're very well spoken. Whether or not it's an accident, I can't wait to hear you. Hopefully back on the desk full time next season. You know, Epic, Blast, Psionics willing. And you willing, of course, as well. But, you know, can't wait to hear you back on the cast, hopefully. And, you know, congratulations to all the accomplishments from 2024. And hopefully 2025 is just as fruitful for you.
I appreciate that. That means a lot. I really enjoyed being on here and talking. I'm not gonna lie, I was so nervous to do this. So I'm glad it went well and you liked it. And thanks to anybody who's listening. Thanks for hanging out with us. And yeah, I hope this year is, just continues to be crazy. I tweeted it out and I said, I was like, this is the first time in my life where I actually have no expectations for what could happen this year just because of how insane last year was.
No
So
kidding.
I'm just gonna go with the flow at this point. But yeah, no, hopefully it'll be a good one for everyone, honestly.
We hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Herculyse. It was truly memorable for us. I really enjoyed getting to speak with her. She's very well spoken and she deserves all her flowers and then some. So we hope, like I said, we hope you enjoyed. And with that, we would like to thank you all so much for listening. Please remember to rate us 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts, share the show, tell a friend. It all helps us grow our platform and our audience and improve the show. Remember to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, and Twitch. Also, please come and join our Discord. Make sure to support us by checking out our merch store and our Patreon, as this is how we will be funding the show and doing giveaways in the future. All of these links and more can be found on our website at boostoverball.com. Herc's links will be available in the episode description below. And from us on the show, as always, remember to choose Boost over Ball. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Boost Over Ball podcast. Make sure to check out our website at boostoverball.com.